So today something big was announced, something that I would consider good and bad. So there's some good and bad news. Today, Nvidia, if you don't know who they are, just Google them. They're probably the #1 manufacturer for graphics card and graphic card technology. When it comes to GPUs, that is a graphics card. What does a graphic card do? It gives you the ability to produce 4K imaging on a computer aspect. For gaming, it's used to help render games faster and fully and more FPS. But with all that tech talk out of the way, what I'm gonna explain to you is that they had just came out with some new amazing, powerful graphics card. And I say amazing because the technology is amazing, but what it's gonna be used for is the problem. For those of you who know, we see a lot of glitches when it comes to NASA, right? When they're doing their live streams, you see all these glitches. And at this point, we're able to detect those. Now, some might just say it's a glitch and it has nothing to do with anything, but a lot of us know that it's more than just a glitch. It's a glitch that's happening because they are doing live edits. So that's why they are, they get away with a lot. But you know, people in the truther community have started to really look at them with a fine-tooth comb and have started to expose the lies behind their magic, their illusion, right? What I mean by that is obviously we've seen plenty of demonstration where they're on the ISS faking it and they're using the VR technology. So with these new graphics cards, what they are able to do is amazing. Okay, these new graphics cards are giving them the ability to render and add more layers where they might not be getting caught as frequently. That's the danger. That's what I'm talking about today. That is what I don't see anyone else speaking of. So I figured I have a little background in technology. I have a YouTube channel which I have ran for the last few years. In fact, that is how I got into YouTube, because I love technology that much that I wanted to bring my voice into the YouTube space. I mean, I literally have a channel that has over 12,000 subscribers and I love talking about this stuff. Okay. Now, with that being said, because of that, I have learned a lot about computers. I've learned a lot about the hardware. I've learned a lot about the software side of things. So when this announcement came, the first thing that came to my head was like, gee, I wonder how NASA's gonna use these new graphics cards, because they're gonna improve. And a lot of us have said this, it's gonna come a time where the technology is gonna catch up and it's gonna be much harder to detect their lies. And today is a step in that direction where these new graphics cards can do things that is going to help them in their lie. So we have to be diligent. Make sure you share this kind of information with people. Share that this is how they do it. This is the technology that is being pushed upon us, which is a fantastic, you know, you can use it for good or you can use it for bad. We know that there are going to be certain entities that are going to use this for deception. I just want to make you guys aware that this technology actually exists today. So yes, I have a few clips of a few people who I follow in the tech community, and they're going to talk about some of the aspects of how this is going to work. Okay, how these graphics cards are actually going to improve workflows and streaming, VR, realistic 3D layering. You're gonna see what I'm talking about. If there's anything you guys have as far as question wise and you're sincerely looking at these things, please leave a comment down below, and here we go.
The reason why they're calling it RTX is because of the focus on ray tracing. Ray tracing is kind of like the next evolutionary step in realism when it comes to the way light, reflections, distance, light refraction, subsurface scattering, all that sort of stuff. The ray tracing is something that's kind of been absent from graphics cards, especially in games, because it's taken such a ridiculous amount of power to handle ray tracing. Now, I'm not gonna go into what ray tracing is here. There's lots of information online. You can find out about it.
And when it came to showing off what the new cards actually do for games, they focused entirely on the new ray tracing hybrid rendering lighting stuff, which makes sense. That is the biggest difference and most important difference of this brand new architecture. No mention of VR, however, no mention of basic general performance increases over the GTX 10 series cards in games more broadly, but I'm sure we'll get to all that kind of stuff, both from Nvidia themselves and from, of course, third parties fortunate enough to be sampled with review units as we climb towards the September 20th launch day. But today, their presentation was all about the ray tracing. And the dummy mode explanation about what ray tracing does, at least in the context of our games, is instead of using the current technique of what's called screen space reflections, which only reflects what's rendered on screen off of other stuff that's on screen. This is a comparatively performance cheap way to do things, but it is not terribly accurate to the entire environment. Ray tracing instead reflects accurately objects and light sources that are off-screen, not currently rendered. And the difference this makes was most dramatically shown in the Battlefield 5 demo they did, where off-screen objects and explosions and such were accurately reflected off the ground, off the buildings, off the cars, off the weapons, and all the other objects in the scene. And the difference this can make to immersion and situational awareness, most importantly in games like this, in fact, situational awareness is potentially game-changingly dramatic. Think about what you can see, what you can detect, what you can infer about the environment that is not currently being rendered directly in front of you by what's being reflected off the stuff that's in front of you. It's huge! Being able to accurately see what's around the corner or occluded by other objects reflected realistically and naturally is a massive thing. The less dramatic but still impressive demos from the new Tomb Raider game and Metro Exodus focused more on shadows and naturally reflected lights for more accurate and natural feeling environments when compared to the way we currently kind of cheat with global illumination and shadows and such. This stuff is much more subtle and probably less impactful to the raw gaming experience, but it was impressive in its own right and can and will make a difference to the sort of immersion and reality of the way these environments feel. But the real and full story of these cards is yet to come, of course, when reviewers start comparing what they do in all other areas of gaming and VR compared to the existing generation of cards, and how that price and performance balance is struck. Alongside that, the big man at Nvidia, Jensen Huang, also touted just how overclockable and quiet the new cards are, which is also pretty important, especially for folks like me who want their cards at absolute peak performance but need them to stay silent so they don't hum and whine and whistle over our recordings and our live streams.
But let's just say it's something that in the past, to do in real time, not even in a gaming environment, just a 3D demo, is something that was just not possible. So now we're gonna talk about NVIDIA Turing, because that's the new core, that's what's designed for ray tracing, and that is what has been in development for the last 10 years at NVIDIA. So that's why you're not seeing Volta as a new family, you're seeing Turing, because Turing was a parallel workflow that was happening within the NVIDIA organization, where they had been developing this for the last 10 years. Once it was ready for prime time, you saw it go live, and that's where we are now. So that's why Titan V and Volta didn't make it to a more mainstream, because it's already obsolete. Titan V was the first kind of a hybrid GPU that came out of Camp NVIDIA. It had the Tensor Core, which was handling things like AI and deep learning and all kinds of other instructions on the side, and then of course the main CUDA core of the GPU. So that made it sort of a hybrid. It handled multiple things at once. The CUDA cores were extremely powerful, obviously. Even in the gaming performance, Titan V was dominating the benchmarks and 3D Mark and all of that. But now the RTX platform and Turing has, what, 5 or 6 different cores doing different things simultaneously. And that's why ray tracing in real time is a thing now, because you have an engine for ray tracing. You have, and these are physical engines, not like, you know, it's not happening at a SDK or instruction set level. It's happening directly, physically, hardware level on the core, handling these as independent processors inside one die. So you've got the ray tracing aspect, you've got the rasterization, you've got obviously, well, we'll put a screen cap up here, you can see what they're all called, but that's all happening simultaneously. So let's talk about the performance of it though. V100, the DGX server that was shown earlier at GDC, had 4 15,000 GPUs in it and $8,000 worth of components and CPU and all that stuff, making a $68,000 server that is now 10 milliseconds slower than a single fully unlocked Turing core that does 110 teraflops per second. One GPU on this launch has just obsoleted an entire $68,000 server. So if that doesn't tell you how far they've come, that's amazing. But again, Turing was a separate workflow, a separate project.
Well, I think it looks so ridiculous and impossible. And you can tell it's real because it looks so fake, honestly. Like, we'd have way better CGI if it was fake.